Remember Silento? He made the entire internet do the same dance. From a billion YouTube views and performing on Good Morning America at 17 to a Georgia state prison cell until 2051. Here's how the kid who made Watch Me ended up convicted of killing his own cousin and where it all went wrong. In the summer of 2015, there was no escaping Watch Me. It was everywhere. School graduations, backyard barbecues, wedding receptions, shopping malls. Parents were doing it. Grandparents were doing it. 5-year-olds were doing it. It crossed every age line, every demographic line, every taste barrier that pop music normally can't clear. For one specific summer, it wasn't just a song. It was the same thing happening in living rooms across every country that had internet access. The person who made it was 17 years old and still attending Redan High School in Stone Mountain, Georgia. Ricky Hawk had written the song after losing a school talent show. He'd already been performing versions of it in the cafeteria and at local birthday parties. And classmates kept asking him to do the dance moves that the song was about. He recorded a proper version in his basement with producer Bolo the producer and uploaded it to SoundCloud. The song spread online before Capitol signed him. A dance entertainment brand called Dance On partnered with music distributor TuneCore to amplify the track through a network of dance creators on YouTube and Vine, and the videos multiplied faster than anyone had planned. Vine was one of the key short-form platforms that helped Watch Me spread, and at the peak of that moment, it felt inescapable. Capitol Records signed him in May 2015. The song peaked at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, spending 6 non-consecutive weeks at that position. It was certified 6 times platinum. It topped the Hot R&B and Hip Hop Songs chart. The official music video has now crossed over 2 billion views on YouTube, making it one of the most watched hip hop videos in the platform's history. He performed it at the BET Awards alongside the cast of Blackish. He performed it on Good Morning America, which he later described as the moment he knew he'd made it. He performed it in Times Square on New Year's Eve. He won the Soul Train Music Award for Best Dance Performance in 2015. He won the World Collaboration Award at the 26th Seoul Music Awards in 2017 for a single recorded with Korean artist Punch. He was a teenager who had made one song in his basement after losing a talent show and turned it into a genuine cultural phenomenon. By any measure available, that was extraordinary. The problem was there was only the one song. Pop music gives you a window for a follow-up. It's measured in months, not years. When a debut goes viral in summer, the expectation is a second single before the year ends. That's how a moment becomes a career. You move while the audience is still looking at you. Silento stayed in school to finish his diploma. He said in interviews that this meant he missed the things most new artists get when they're first signed. The early momentum, the strategic rollout, the constant visibility that keeps a new act in the conversation. By the time the machinery was in position for the next phase, the cultural moment had passed. Vine was gone. TikTok didn't exist yet. The specific environment that had made Watch Me inescapable had dissolved. Follow-up singles didn't chart. Collaborations didn't produce a second hit. His debut album, Fresh Outta High School, came out in August 2018, 3 full years after the song. He released a second volume the same year, a mixtape in 2019. None of it broke through. He and Capitol Records eventually parted ways. By the time he was releasing independently, the music conversation had moved so completely past him that his name was already being used in the past tense. His publicist later said he'd simply missed the window of opportunity when the song originally came out. That's where the mainstream career ended. Not with a scandal, not with a public falling out. Quietly, in the space between the moment and the follow-up that never arrived. What followed that silence was something else entirely. The signs started appearing publicly in 2017. In March of that year, Silento failed to show up to 2 scheduled performances in the United Arab Emirates. The city of Al Ain placed a travel ban on him, confiscated his passport, and ordered him to pay a local promoter around $81,000 in lost fees before he could leave the country. He posted a crowdfunding link on Twitter to raise the money to get home. He titled it, "Free Silento." That was the first part of a downfall the public could see. Looking back, it wasn't the most important one. In 2019, he appeared on the television show The Doctors and spoke openly about what his life had looked like from the beginning. He said he'd grown up surrounded by violence and trauma. He said he'd battled depression since childhood, that he'd been given ADHD medication and sleeping pills as a teenager, and that gaining fame hadn't made any of it easier.
The first week, I was given ADHD for meds, sleeping pills. I was getting skinny, I was getting stressed. I was never officially diagnosed with ADHD, but I still had to take these drugs.
He told the host that depression doesn't leave you when you become famous. It just adds more pressure. He said he didn't know if he could ever truly be happy or if the demons would ever go away. That interview aired 2 years before Frederick Rooks died. In August 2020, Silento was arrested in Santa Ana, California on a domestic violence charge. He posted bail the same day. The following morning, the Los Angeles Police Department charged him with assault with a deadly weapon. Witnesses told police he'd walked into a stranger's home in the Valley Village neighborhood of Los Angeles, holding a hatchet, looking for his girlfriend. A family and their children were inside when he entered. He was disarmed before anyone was physically hurt. He was charged with 2 felony counts of assault with a deadly weapon and held on a $105,000 bail. 6 weeks after that, in October 2020, DeKalb County Police clocked him driving 143 miles per hour on Interstate 85 in Atlanta at 3 in the morning, where the speed limit is 65. When officers pulled him over, he told them he drove that fast because people followed him everywhere he went. Body camera footage captured him growing increasingly agitated, making statements about being followed and tracked. He was charged with reckless driving, speeding, and failure to maintain lane. His publicist later said he had been suffering immensely from mental health issues during this period. Court proceedings later focused heavily on his severe bipolar disorder, which he was formally diagnosed with while in custody. These weren't isolated incidents. They were a visible, documented pattern that wasn't met with the intervention it needed. Frederick Rooks III was Silento's cousin. On the night of January 20th into the early morning hours of the 21st, Silento picked him up in a white SUV. Surveillance footage from nearby homes captured that vehicle at the scene shortly after the shots were fired. Rooks was found in the roadway with multiple gunshot wounds to his face and leg. 10 shell casings were near his body. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Silento was arrested on February 1st, 2021. During a post-arrest interview with investigators, he admitted to the shooting. Ballistics testing confirmed that the casings at the scene matched a gun found on him at the time of his arrest. His grandparents appeared at his bail hearing and asked the judge to deny his release. His own grandparents stood in court and said he should stay in custody. The case sat in the courts for 4 years, while his mental health was examined at length. No motive was publicly stated in the reporting. On June 11, 2025, Ricky Lamar Hawk pleaded guilty but mentally ill to voluntary manslaughter, aggravated assault, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, and concealing the death of another. The original malice murder charge was dropped as part of the plea. DeKalb County Superior Court Judge Courtney Johnson sentenced him to 30 years in prison. With credit for time served since his 2021 arrest, his earliest possible release date is 2051. He'll be 53 years old. His attorney told Billboard that for the first time since his arrest, Ricky was in his right mind and had a full understanding of everything that had happened and what had brought him there. He said his client had been dealing with mental illness since the age of 12, and that it was unfortunate it had ended this way. Prison intake photos released to the public showed a shaved head, a blank expression, and an oversized prison shirt. He looked nothing like the teenager who made the whole world do the same dance a decade earlier. The song is still out there. Over 2 billion YouTube views and climbing. It still plays at school events, wedding receptions, throwback playlists, and compilations of things that defined 2015. Watch Me is completely intact and will outlast almost everything else in this video. The person who made it in his basement at 17 is in a Georgia state prison until at least 2051. His mainstream career didn't end with the murder. It had already ended quietly years before, in the gap where a follow-up should have been. What the murder did was make the ending permanent and put a death at the center of a story that until then had just been about a window closing too fast. Watch Me came out when he was 17, with no real infrastructure for that scale of attention and a documented history of mental health struggles that predated the fame and were made heavier by it. The spotlight arrived before everything else did. Frederick Rooks was 34 years old. He had people who loved him. That's not a footnote in this story. It's the center of it. The video has over 2 billion views. The person who made it won't be eligible for release until 2051. That's the whole story. The dance just made it harder to look away. If you got something from this video, leave a like and subscribe. The next video is already on your screen. Click it. We'll catch you over there. Take it easy